the wrong crowd. We want them to have a successful career. We want the church to have tutoring for the SAT. We want the church to have tutoring for the MCAT. We want the church to have, programs to help our kids thrive and be successful. Okay? What else do we want? We want them to become servants. We want them to become deacons, highest level of everything. We want them to become important people in the church. We want them to be known. They're known, and we're known, right? If they look bad, we look bad, right? Right? So these motivations are not good motivations. This isn't why we bring our kids to church. And we have to be careful because the more these motivations are in us, we will pass them to our kids. And at some point, our kids will be like, I don't want to go to your church anymore. Because this isn't spirituality. And so when we say things very simple like الناس هيتكلموا علينا, الناس هيقولوا إيه علينا, people are going to talk about us. I want you to dress as a deacon. It's very important you dress as a deacon so that people know our family is a good family. You have to be careful what you're actually teaching your child when you say something like that. Or don't post something on Instagram because the people at church will see it. What are you saying? Saying, I don't really care about God. I care about the people at church. The people at church are judgmental. The people at church are bad. The people at church, if they find out what you did, they'll talk about you. Hide who you really are from the people at church. Pretend to be someone else at church. What we're telling our kids. And then we wonder why the kids go, what kind of religion is this? You want me to pretend? And then you want me to go to church where all the bad people are? All the judgmental people are? All the people who talk about me all the time? You want me to go to this church? And sometimes when we do things like this, we actually create more of a problem because we keep telling the kids, watch out, the people at church are going to judge you. The people at church are going to talk about you. The people at church are going to do this. And now you've made everyone at church the enemy, okay? And now they go to church and, something happens and someone turns around and looks at a door slamming. And your daughter goes, yeah, she's looking at me, she's judging me. And people just look at your kids, it's normal, and they're like, oh, they're judging me. And so you've created a problem that may not have been there because you introduced a motivation that is not the right motivation. The looks, our appearances. When you go out with your friends, be sure to fast. But Mom, I'm not fasting. It's okay. Don't tell them you're not fasting. Fast when you go out so that people think you're fasting. You know how destructive that sentence is? Are we even Christians anymore at that point? What are we? What are we doing? So this isn't the right motivation for the spiritual life. And this isn't why we bring our kids to church. So the why. Why do we bring them to church? Why do I care? Because there's two reasons. The first is I want to go to heaven. I want to be with my Savior. And I want my kid to be in heaven with me. So I want to be in heaven with my kid. I don't care about the people or the job or the whatever or the success or the career or I want to be in heaven and I want my kid to be in heaven. And I want both of us to have a relationship with Christ. That's the motivation. And when my motivation is very clear, I'm bringing my kids to Christ. Not bringing my kids to church, full stop. Right? We don't bring our kid just to church. Church is a building. That's Christ. We bring our kids to God. Our relationship is with God. So how do we do this? And I want to talk about the rest of the talk. To be intentional. Be very focused on what I'm doing as a parent. Because if you're not focused and you're just gonna, khabbat, bin lattash, and all of us bin khabbat, right? All of us are just trying to make it. But with regard to this place and our relationship, it becomes very important why and what you're doing and how you're doing it. Because here's the thing. If your motivation isn't pure, then without thinking, you're going to constantly give off the wrong information. You're going to constantly say the wrong thing. You're going to pretend to be something. You're going to try to show your kids, La ana bta kanisa, church is very important to us, and you're going to try to say those things, but you don't really feel it. And your kid's going to figure it out. By the way, your kid figures out all of it. So if you try to hide who you are from your kids, you're going to lose. Because they have 25 years to figure you out. And they're going to figure you out. Just like you figured out your parents, right? Baba, when he does this, he says this, but he doesn't mean this. And when he says this, he means this. We all figured out Baba. Well, your kids are going to figure you out the exact same way. And so my goal is make all of you not like me. So I don't want to get invited back, and I don't want to give these talks anymore. So the focus of my talk is it's not the kids, it's you. So I'm not going to talk about the kids. Kids aren't the problem. You're the problem. I'm the problem. Okay? And you fix me, and the kids get fixed. So I'm going to read to you some quotes from a saint, Elder Porphyrios, who wrote about raising children. I'm just going to read you a few quotes from his book, and that's all we're going to talk about, the quotes from his book. I like the shirt, I was normal 2 kids ago. Some of us 3 kids ago. So how do we raise Orthodox children in America? First thing is we have a problem. And this isn't just in the Coptic Church. Many people in the United States are atheists. Many of them identify themselves as nothing, agnostic, none of the above, don't care, don't know anything about religion. And this is growing in the Coptic community. Okay? We don't say it as much because it's very aib to say it. But many of our kids, just like, yeah, whatever. I come for the Eid. I come to satisfy my mom and dad. I come just so they don't get upset. But inside, nothing. Okay? And 43% of half of the kids aged 18 to 29 identify themselves as none. Nothing. I'm nothing. Okay? I don't think we're this bad in the Coptic Church, but we're getting there. And we're getting to these statistics. And in the Coptic community, of course, we know so many people who have stopped coming. And so one of the things in this department that we're a part of, the Department of Church and Culture, is Sayyidina asked us to understand why youth are leaving the church. And we did a lot of that. We came up with 9 big reasons as to why youth are leaving the church. I won't talk about them, but number 5 is the one I want to talk about. It says, absence of relatable mentors and examples of Christ in the lives of youth. One of the reasons the youth leave is because there is no relatable example of Christ in their life. There's no mentor who is that person that I care about. Now, immediately we think what? That's because there's no good Sunday school teacher. That's because the priests aren't good examples. That's because the bishop is not a good example. That's because uncle and tant are not a good example. That's because. Okay, so I'm going to help you all right now. The only example they need is you. That's it. So, Doctors Christopher Smith and Dr. Amy, 2 premier sociologists of religion, have studied the evidence and come to a powerful conclusion about the role that parents play in the faith of raising their children. And here's the quote. The good news is that among all the possible influences, social media, their friends at school, the servants at church, the uncles and taunts, whoever, parents exert far and away the greatest influence on the children's religious outcome. And so they did a lot of research studies as to what makes a kid come back to church when they're older as adults. They found it's the biggest influence, it's just the parents. Stated differently, the bad news is that nearly all human responsibility for the religious trajectories of our children's lives fall on their parents' shoulders. This shouldn't be new to you, right? When our kids are baptized, we're given a very strict thing. We're told, look, now you're responsible for them. Now you have to be an example to them. Okay? And unfortunately, many of us take that as like, oh, I have to bring them to Sunday school. I have to bring them to church. I have to bring them to hymn class. And that's fine. But that's not what they're talking about. That's easy. Bringing your kid to Sunday school? Easy. Bringing your kid to hymn class, put him in the retreats, throw him downstairs while you're up here in the meeting? Easy. Okay? That's not the hard part. That's not the part that's going to change your child. Bringing them to meetings and throwing them into Sunday school and these types of things. The empirical evidence is clear. In almost every case, no other institution or program comes close to shaping youth religiously as their parents do. Not religious congregations, youth group, faith-based schools. So many of you are like, should I go in private school or public school or private school, religious school, Protestant school? And I always tell the parents the same thing when they ask me, that really doesn't matter. Like all three of my kids went to public schools. Doesn't matter. Right? And the private schools are full of as much drugs and garbage as the public schools. Sometimes worse. Missions and service trips, everyone wants to put their kid on a mission trip because it's going to change their life. It changes their life for like 2 weeks. Great 2 weeks. Then after that, life as usual. Summer camps, Sunday schools, youth ministers, or anything else. Those influences can reinforce the influence of parents, but almost never do they surpass or override it. And everybody can tell you, every servant can tell you that when the kid is a hot mess, when the kid has lots of problems, all you do is you trace it right back to where the parents, right? By the time the servants see it, and Abuna's aware of it, and now the kid's got all kinds of issues, and they're into drugs, and they're into whatever, you go back to the parents, see the problem. And a lot of times, I'll meet with the parents, and they will immediately tell me, he was a deacon. He knew all the hymns. I took him to every meeting. And they're immediately justifying that they're good parents. And I say, I don't care. Tell me about you. لا أنا خلاص. I'm older. You have a father in confession? لا أنا 50. Father in confession. They look at me like I'm an idiot. I'm like, oh, okay. Your attendance? لا ما we attended when they were little. بس خلاص بقى now they're older. Okay. I don't need to hear anymore. Right? And so despite you taking them to all the deacon meetings and all the hymn classes and all the retreats and all the youth meetings and all that, you made them go to all the things, big gazma, right? And they went. At least I took them. I'm a good parent. Okay. You all see what I'm saying? All right, so this elder, his name is Elder Porphyrios. He was canonized in the Greek church in 2013. He's a monk in Mount Athos, and he's really quite amazing. And I highly recommend you read some of his books because he's something else. But I want to read you some of his quotes. بس some of the quotes are going to be a little hard to hear, but we're all going to read them together, and I'm just going to hit you kida, and hopefully you don't like me and don't have to do this again. First quote. The solution is to be found through the sanctification of the parents. Become saints, and you will have no problems with your children. The sanctity of their parents releases the children from their problems. The sanctification of the parents. So let me ask you, if we took Saint Moses the Black, and after he lived a very bad life, Musa al-Aswad, right? He lived a very bad life, all the things, and then we find out he wants to marry a Coptic girl, okay? And so he says, that's it. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to become a good person. I'm going to start going to church because I really want to marry this girl. Is that sanctification of the parents? Why is he doing it? He wants to marry the girl. Is he doing it for himself? Is he doing it for his own relationship with Christ? In fact, if St. Moses the Black did it for any other reason other than his own relationship with Christ, he would not be St. Moses the Black. He'd just be another guy. So, what is this saying? You may read this as the solution is to be found through the sanctification of the parents. Become saints and you'll have no problem with your children. So if I reverse it and I say, I don't want to have problems with my children, so I'm going to become a saint. Does that work? It does not. I'll say it again. If I read this and say, look, I don't want to have problems with my children, so I'm going to become holy. Why am I becoming holy? Because I don't want to have problems with my children. Is God anywhere in that story? Is that real? That's fake. That's pretending. That's, I'm going to come to church so my kids see me at church, and then they see that I go to church, and then they'll go to church. Right? I'm going to trick the kids. Are the kids tricked? No, the kids are smarter than you are. The kids are figured it out more than you have. Okay? So if I want to have a good relationship, if I'm doing the church thing, the holy thing for my kids, then I'm not doing the church thing. I'm pretending, correct? So when I say sanctification of the parents, it has nothing to do with the kids. It's between me and God. Only. Say it again. My life with God is between me and God. I'm not for my wife, for my kids, for the service, for Abuna, for the bishop. This is between me and God. This is what real sanctification means. Otherwise, you're just pretending. And we can't pretend. The kids are too smart. The kids are watching us 24 hours a day. It's like a video camera, right? They're constantly watching you. They're watching your face. They're watching how you respond. They're watching when you're tired. They're watching when you're upset. They're watching what you say. You think you're going to fool them? 8-year-olds have their parents figured out. Yeah, dad just says that when he's tired. Dad doesn't really mean that. They're 8. Imagine when they're 18. Okay. Make sense? هتزعل مني؟ Okay, هتزعلوا دلوقتي. All right. The parents need to devote themselves to the love of God. Have we talked about the kids yet? No kids. This has nothing to do with the kids. Forget the kids. This is about you and your relationship with God. They need to become saints in their relation to their children through their mildness, patience, and love. They need, let me go back. Where do you get mildness, patience, and love? How many people here are parents? Do we have any mildness, patience, or love left at the end of the day? That ended at about 7:45 in the morning. That's when the tank finished. Just getting them awake and dressed. There goes all the mildness, patience, and love. It's done by 7:30. So where does the rest of it come from? How do you offer mildness, patience, and love unconditionally? How do you continue to offer it when your kid doesn't deserve it? Do all the kids deserve mildness, patience, and love? Absolutely not. Right? دول يعني يستاهلوا. Okay. Right? So the kids don't deserve it. They don't earn it. They don't act good. They don't act the way we want. They don't get what they want. They cry. They don't deserve anything. And neither do you. So why do you have mildness, patience, and love? Because you felt mildness, patience, and love. From whom? From whom? Who gave you mildness, patience, and love? Your parents? No, they didn't. That was Gezma. Where did you get mildness, patience, and love from? Sanctification, my relationship with God. So where does the tank get filled? Because people constantly ask, how do I refill the tank? God refills the tank. He refills the tank because you're connected to the infinite tank. And once you cut that connection with that tank, your tank will run empty very, very fast. And if I'm constantly experiencing mildness, patience, and love, then I have an endless supply of mildness, patience, and love. That becomes my nature. And that's all I give off to my kids. They need to make a new start every day with a fresh outlook, renewed enthusiasm and love for their children, and the joy that will come to them, the holiness that will visit them, will shower grace on their children. So everyone see how this is going? This isn't about bring your kid to church. This isn't about I should come to church so I can be a good example. Don't ever say that. I want to be a good example for my kids. That's the worst thing you can say. Don't say that. It's not about being a good example. That's called being fake. That's a lie. I want to lie and pretend to be someone I'm not, so my kids think I'm someone I'm not, so that my kids become real. No, they're going to be just like you, fake. And unfortunately, in America, we don't do fake. American culture isn't about fake. American culture is about being very transparent, being very open, being very honest. And you'll meet an American person at Albertsons, and in 10 minutes they'll say, yeah, I used to be an alcoholic, and I'm recovering, and I don't even know you, right? And he's telling you all about his alcoholism. Yeah, I divorced my wife, and I'm getting back from drug rehab now, and like, okay, what's your name? So America is about this kind of transparency. And if you're selling non-transparency, if you're selling fake, your kid's going to be like, I don't want anything to do with this church. And many kids say that. Ralph Waldo Emerson, very famous guy, he says, what you do speaks so loud that I cannot hear what you say. What you do speaks so loud that I cannot hear what you say. I was talking with a couple, and we were talking about, marriage expectations, and the guy was like, he was so great, and he said a few things, and I was like, that's very insightful what you're saying. Like, that's very impressive that you're 22, 23, and you know all this. Did you study psychology? He was saying the good stuff, like what a real man is. And I was very impressed. And he said, no, my dad taught me all that. And I said, oh, what did your dad talk to you about? He goes, my dad never spoke a word to me. I just watched him. Everything I told you, I just watched him. And I was blown away because he gave insight that if half the men in our church knew these things, we'd have no more marital problems. He's like, I just watched him. Again, what you do speaks so loud, right? When the phone rings, and this is, now we have cell phones, but back in the day, right, when the phone would ring and your dad would say, La ullu ana naim. Tell him I'm asleep. Why, Dad? Why are you lying? You're going to teach me not to lie now? You're a liar. You showed me you're a liar. And why are you lying? You don't want to be bothered? Because you don't want to help another person? Because you don't care? Because this person's bothered you too many times? Because he's going to ask for help and you don't want to give him help? Is that why you want to lie, Baba? What are you going to teach that kid? What is Sunday school going to teach that kid? Sunday school is half an hour a week. And no one's listening. The kids are all running around screaming. You think half an hour a week of Sunday school is going to fix this? 6 days a week of you lying? Kid doesn't have a chance. He's going to be just like you. You're not going to like it. Sorry, I'm being so mean. مش كده؟ سامحوني. Okay, it gets worse. This is a very uplifting talk today, Yani. I was supposed to give you some hope, but no hope. But maybe the other speakers will give you hope. حاجة كده. All right, I'm supposed to be the mean person, and everyone else is supposed to be the, yeah. Okay. First of all, this is not my words. This is his words. Okay, if you have a problem, talk to him. Generally, the parents are to blame for the bad behavior of the children. And their behavior is not improved, and this is the important part, is not improved by reprimands, yani shaht, disciplining or strictness. Now, this is a very surprising thing to hear. This is a saint from, the 1950s, and he's saying it's not improved by reprimand, disciplining, or strictness, which we think is what good parenting is. Mashib al-asaya. He says, if the parents do not pursue a life of holiness, and if they don't engage in spiritual struggle, they make great mistakes and transmit the faults they have within them. So he says the parents, sometimes the parents compensate by being strict and harsh. Don't say that. Don't do that. That's not good. And they just become this no, 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 no. And the kids get sick of it. And what he's saying is, pursue a life of holiness and engage in spiritual struggle. Why are you engaging in spiritual struggle? Because I want good kids? Trick question. No. If I'm engaging in spiritual struggle because I want my kids to be good, then that is not spiritual struggle. What is that? Being fake, lying, not true, pretending. Can you pretend with God? Can you pretend to have a spiritual struggle when you're not spiritually struggling? Does that work? Does that mean anything? And so when I'm engaged in a spiritual struggle, and really I don't even care about my kids' spiritual struggle, just engage in your own. Engage in your own. Then they're going to, as he says, absorb it. Just going to absorb it from you. And this is the reality of raising kids. It's not about the disciplining and the yelling and the rules and the this and the you have to. The kids live with you and they love you because you're kind and compassionate. Your kindness and your compassion comes from where? The most kind and the most compassionate. Your tank is filled by kindness and love and mercy and compassion. And the kids feel that. And they want to be around you. And they want to be with you. And they want to learn from you. And they want you to talk to them. Because it's a source of goodness. It's a source of happiness. Christ is easy to love. Masih yithab. Sometimes we make it a little too difficult. Okay, I love this quote. He says, this is the most perfect way for the mother to speak to God and for God to speak to the children. We're going to talk a little bit more about this idea of praying for your kids. If you do not communicate in this way, constant lecturing becomes a kind of intimidation. And when the child grows up, it begins to rebel. That is to take revenge, so to speak, on the father and mother who coerced it. There are kids that take revenge on their parents when they're older, after everything the parents did. They actually want to get them back. And I've heard kids tell me, I want to do anything except what my mom wants me to do. She wants me to be a doctor, I won't be a doctor. Just to get her. Why? Because this constant lecturing, this constant yelling, this constant do this, do that, be good, do mish harif eh. After a while, the kid's like, why am I living like this? Again, this isn't some American new guy saying this is a guy in Greece in the 1950s who's a saint, who did many miracles, by the way. And he's talking about raising kids in a loving way. Okay. All right, sorry, this is one of the last long, I put all the big quotes early, it depress you. The life of the children seems to be affected by the radiation of their parents. If the parents insist, يصمموا, force, come on, go, make confession, go, take communion, then nothing is achieved. If you're going to make your kids confess and make them take communion, I mean, like Christianity is about freedom. This isn't Islam. Islam, if you do the things, you go to heaven. You just have to do the things. Just do them. Not Christianity. If you just force a kid to say these words, isn't, Muhammad Rasulullah, right? You don't just say the words. Jesus never said, just say the words. He said what? Ibni, ini kalbak, right? My son, give me your heart. It's all about the heart. So if I force my kid to do something, it's not from his heart. Okay? Now, obviously, when they're little, you gotta make them come to church, and you gotta make them do little things. But as they get older, they can't learn confession because you force them. Who are they going to learn confession from? From you, because you're going to confession. And are you going to confession so that they could go to confession? Trick question. No. Why? That's fake. That's lying. That's pretending. I don't go to confession so my kids see me go to confession and they go to confession. They learn that confession is important. What is that? That's crazy. That's not confession. That's show. That's acting. That's pretending. And every kid's going to figure it out. But what does your child see in you? How do you live and what do you radiate? Does Christ radiate in you? This is what is transmitted to your child. They feel it. They feel God. Feel God in the home. They feel God in their parents. They feel the goodness of God in their parents. Just feel it. This is where the secret lies. And if this is done when the child is young, it will not be necessary for it to undergo great travail when it grows up. And the kids feel God, not just your love, because your love comes and goes, but when they feel God in you, not because you're trying to make them feel God, because that's, again, what? Fake. No, they just feel God in you. They calm down, relax. They're not so agitated. They're not so anxious. They're not so problematic. How do you live and what do you radiate? What does your child see in you? And I'll tell you why this is so hard. Because this is the hardest thing in Christianity. Coming to church, easy. Going to the meetings, easy. Dealing with my wife when she's really upsetting me, dealing with my husband, dealing with my mother-in-law, dealing with my sister, dealing with my friend, very hard. Showing love in the face of evil, very, very, very hard. Being gossiped about, talked about, and then showing forgiveness, very, very, very hard. This is what the kids feel. This is what they see. If you tell your kids, I will never forgive her after what she did, karamti. I hate that word. Karamti. What does karamti mean? Huh? This is something we all say, huh? Karamti. What does that mean? My dignity, my ego, my pride. Why did Satan fall? Karamti. This is satanic. This word is satanic. And we say it all the time. Where did it come from? Did it come from the Bible? Did the saints say karamti? No, where did it come from? An Islamic country where karamti is very, very important. And if you're teaching your kid, la da karamti, da karamat abuk, What are you teaching them? Are you teaching them the humility of Christ? Was Christ karamti? He say things like that? Or was Christ a doormat? Wasn't Christ a doormat? He served, he loved. Then they crucify him, and what does he say? Forgive them. No karamti here. Opposite. That's very hard to do. Your kid's going to feel that. And if you've really worked on your ego and you've really worked on your pride, your kid will feel it. And they won't be prideful. And they'll know the church is not a place of pride. And they'll know what's right from wrong. And it'll be relaxing. You know, when you present Christ to little kids, really, Jesus, they all just relax. Because he's easy. He's easy to love. He's a very simple guy. So this elder says, speak more to God about your children than to your children about God. I love that. Speak more to God about your children than to your children about God. Remember, you are the primary source of education about who God is to your kids. Does that mean you have to give a talk? You have to give a sermon? You have to give a Bible study? I have to know the verses? So then how is the kid going to learn about God from you if you don't talk? You all know the answer by now. He's going to watch you. Because remember, to your kids, you are God. When your kids are little, they know who God is because of you. That's when you talk to them about God and Sunday school and all of these concepts, this is all they can equate is Baba and Mama. Right? So they're learning about God. Is God merciful? I don't know. Is Baba merciful? Does God forgive? Or does God say, Tayyiban hawarik? Because every once in a while we think to ourselves, God says, An hawarik. People say that stuff. Rabbina aiz yadibni. Rabbina aiz rabbini. Rabbina aiz, and you're like, does he? Or is that your dad? Who are you talking about? And they've associated all these characteristics to God that's actually just their parents. Right? So you are God to your kids. What does that mean? Give a lot of talks? Say a lot of words? Give sermons? Be. Giving talks is very easy. You can give talks all day long. That's easy. You know what's hard? Being. Killing my ego. Killing karamti. Loving in the face of hatred. Forgiving in the face of non-forgiveness. Being merciful in the face of someone not being merciful to me. That's very hard. That is what your kids are going to learn. They're going to know who God is from you, not because of your talking. So what I'm suggesting today, there's no quick fix. It is a life of repentance on your part, not because of the kids. Again, that's what? Fake. If we don't start our own spiritual life in earnest, the kids really won't either. I mean, they'll come and, some of them will dress as deacons and say things and, be in front of everyone and say the thing in front of everyone on the microphone and everyone be proud and happy. But then they'll turn 25 and they'll leave because they built their house on the sand, not on the rock. They didn't build it on Christ. They built it on mazahir, aban, kalam al-nas, these things. This isn't the rock. This isn't Christ. The soul of a teenager is in the state of explosion of freedom. For this reason, he has a hard time accepting various counsels. This is normal, right? Teenagers don't want to hear advice. So rather than counseling him continuously and reproaching him now and again, leave the situation to Christ, to the saints, asking them to bring him to reason. Question: do you believe this? Do you really? Do you really believe in the power of prayer? And that's an important question, because we all say we do. Really believe it. You really think, I'm not going to talk to my son about this. I'm going to pray that God talk to my son about this. Is that the same? Are you willing to bet on it? Are you willing to bet your kid's future on it? These are questions we have to ask ourselves. I'll tell you guys a story. I have it somewhere here in the slides. I'll tell it to you now. Kind of a personal story, but I think we were at Thanksgiving, and we were playing games. So our families were together, and we were playing board games. And my sons were playing with me, and we were playing with my wife's sister. And my middle son, rolled. We're playing Risk. Anyone know how to play Risk? You roll defense, and then you roll offense. Not important. Okay. So my middle son rolled. Anastasia, Anna, you can't say any of this story. My middle son rolled something, and then my older son rolled something else and lost. Okay. And then, so then my older son said, "Oh, wait, no, that's not the rules. The rules is I'm supposed to roll first, so this doesn't count." And I'm like, "Well, we always play that, the defense rolls first and then the offense. We've been playing like that for years." He goes, "Yeah, but that's not the rules." And he looks up the rules. And I go, "Okay, but fine. But you can't change it in the middle of the game. Like, you obviously just lost, and that's why you're trying to change the rules." And he's like, "No, that's the rules. That's what we're going to do. We're going to roll again." And I'm like, "You're cheating. You're just cheating." And I was so upset. And because my older son doesn't cheat. So this really bothered me that and then I was like putting on my dad hat. I'm like, I'm going to explain it to him. I'm going to talk to him. This is cheating. And I can logic my way through this. And so I started, and he dug in. Like 15 or something. Rebbe, right? And he dug in and was like, "No." And I was like, so upset. I left. I went to the other room. And I just looked up, and I said, "God, you teach him, because obviously I can't. You figure it out." And I went back in the room, quite happy. I go, "Okay, let's do that." And my middle son goes, "What? That's not fair. What are you talking about?" I go, "Let's just do that." Okay? So, just to make the long story short, my younger son, who got cheated, he rolled 7 6s in a row. If you want to do the math on that, that's very unlikely. And that's the good thing you want to roll. And the son who cheated rolled 7 1s in a row. And my older son was good enough at math, and I said, "What's the statistics on that?" He just looked at me, he goes, "God was teaching me a lesson." And so it's almost like God gave me this little piece of candy. Like, I couldn't handle it. I said, "You handle it." And we have to be willing to do that. Because sometimes we hold on too tight as parents. Hold on too tight. And, we're really good at giving advice to other people. Like, so if other kid's messing up, we go, "La la salli, wa rabbina yahdi," right? And God will take care of him. And because it's not my kid, right? That's easy for me to say when it's not my kid. But now it's my kid. And it's like, "Oh, no. I'm going to handle this. This is my kid now. We're going to keep all the praise stuff for church and for other people's kids." Okay. All right, so now I'll give you some practical advice. This is just advice, I don't know. Don't push for study alone. If you're just the study parents and you make your kids, so you become a doctor and you become whatever, don't do that. Please don't work too hard. and try to spend time with your kids. Your kids don't need the money. They need you, especially now, and especially the dads. Masculinity, boys in general in our society are somewhat under attack. Boys need their dads. And if dads working 70 hours a week, you know what, work 40 and have less things. But be there for your kids. They need you. Not the money, not the whatever. They need you around them. Both parents need to parent. Last week, I was at a church. I won't say which church, doesn't matter. And I came a little late, so I was in the back, and the liturgy was happening, and it was a small dikka. Right? It was a small pew, like 5 people. In front of me, I was in the back wall. And nobody was in the dikka except for a dad and a mom, okay? Dad's here, mom's here. Mom's got the toddler and the stroller, and she's doing all the things, and the toddler's running around, blah, blah, blah. And dad is not even nothing. And then every once in a while, the kid would make sound or something and he'd turn around, he'd look, and he'd look, holy, and then he'd look forward. And I was so mad. I wanted to walk up. I go, "Mata'amil haga. Matsad maratak." Like, what's wrong with you? He's sitting there and he's just like, "That's not it's her job to do." Don't do that. This is not okay. This is not Christian. This, again, comes from a male-dominated Islamic society. This is not right. And the kids need their dads. The moms are overwhelmed. So both parents need to parent, and each parent has a different approach. It's okay to have different approaches. In fact, it's the different approaches that complete the children. Mom tub and dad is a little harsh. That's okay, right? We need tub and we need a little harsh. If we just have tub and no harshness, the kid turns out, and we see lots of spoiled kids who can't do anything, like my kids. I have the worst kids. You know my kids. All right. And even though you have a different approach, both parents should agree on the basic principles. Don't use the kids as weapons against each other. Don't say, "Well, your mom thinks blah, blah, blah." I don't think so, but that's what your mom said. So that's not fair. Don't do that. Or your dad. A lot of women use the kids against their dads. There should be fairness between kids. This one's really important. Listen more than you talk. I mean, we just will not shut up. It's amazing. I was in Egypt last year. So you know some of these people too. Actually, where's Tante Nabila? Oh, good. So I was with my cousin, and his daughters are like 27, 25, old. Okay? And I asked them a question, and then the dad answers. And then I ask him another question, and then the dad answers. So I turn to the dad, I go, "Yani, you're not going to let them answer at some point?" He's like, "La, la, la, right? That thing. So you couldn't get him to stop talking, right? And around him, they just shut down. Quiet, right? So please listen more than you talk. Ask questions. What does it say? "Bi'a qabla ma tashtari," or something like that, right? Take from the kids, listen. Ask. Keep them talking, because that means they're important. That means you can listen. They can talk to you about whatever topic, even if it's a stupid topic. Let them talk, right? Because eventually they're going to come with a really important topic, and if you haven't trained them that I will listen to you, they won't tell you. They won't talk to you. And we do this all the time. We just blow them off without realizing, because we're busy and we're whatever. But you have to listen a lot. Yani focus on listening to them, asking them lots of questions. Like sometimes even with my kids, they'll come and they'll ask me something, like, "Well, what do you think about this?" And I'll say, "What do you think?" And then they'll tell me what they think, and I'll ask them more questions. And then in the end, they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, I mean, it's your life. I don't know. And I won't answer. And sometimes my kids get mad at me for not answering. They're like, why don't you tell us what you think? And they're begging me to tell them what I think. And then sometimes I see parents who don't stop telling their kids what they think. And the kids couldn't care less. And they're not listening. And they're tuning them out. And all the parents do is tell them what they think all the time. Right? So try and get yourself to be, look, parenting is all about reverse psychology. Don't listen to this, Anna. Okay? Parenting is all about reverse psychology. Right? The more you tell them to go left, they go right. What you do is you hold back, and then they come to you. Okay? Be smart. Support is unwavering. The kids must know that no matter what, I support you. Maybe I think what you did is dumb, but I support you 1,000%. They know they can come to you anytime. They can get arrested, and the first call they're going to make is not their friend. They're going to call their dad or their mom. And they know you're going to come to the jail and pick them up and not idilhum kilmitin. You're going to come and you're going to give them a hug. And you're going to, first thing out of your mouth is going to say, I love you, when you pick your kid up from jail. And that could happen. Okay. Five more minutes? Okay. Okay. This is really important. This is a guy named John Gottman. Gottman is a very famous psychologist. And he has this quote that I think resonates. He says, human nature dictates that it is virtually impossible to accept advice from someone unless you feel that that person understands you. I mean, on the drive up here, I was talking to a newlywed who's having a lot of trouble because every time her husband speaks, she goes, I know what he's going to say, so I just cut him off. And I'm like, well, he doesn't feel listened to. She goes, yeah, that's what he says. So it's impossible for the husband to accept advice from his wife because he does not feel understood by her, because she never lets him finish. She goes, I know what he's going to say. Yeah, but let him say it. Let him finish the sentence. Okay? And with your kids, let them finish. I know you know what they're going to say. Let them finish. Then they feel, okay, dad understands me. And then let them finish. They're not going to, yeah, you're the parent, ishrabi. You let them finish, and then you repeat back to them what they said to you. So I'm hearing you say blah, blah, blah. These are the tips that psychologists do. Okay, whatever you guys. All right. I have 30 more slides. Why did I spend all this time last night doing this? Okay. يا سلام جاي دلوقتي don't rush. Okay, I'll last point. Yeah, I did that. So St. Clement of Alexandria says, loving one's enemies does not mean loving wickedness, theft, ungodliness, or adultery. So if I love a bad person, they're still bad. They're still doing bad things. But it's okay for me to love them. And doesn't mean I'm loving the bad things. Rather, it means loving the thief, the ungodly person, and the adulterer. Not as far as he sins, but as he is a man and is the work of God. Okay. Sometimes we think that when our kids act badly, that I have to, kashar wishi, and I give them a frown, and I pretend like I don't like them. I won't speak to them for a week because I have to let them know that I don't approve of their actions. But those kids think what? Dad what? Hates me. Dad doesn't love me unless I do what Dad wants. Then Dad loves me. You know how many kids have told me that? My parents only love me when I do what they want. It's horrible. The kid should always know dad always loves me. No matter what he does, I'm still going to love you. This is a story by St. Macarius. Okay, I'll read it to you. No, I'll tell you the story. So this is a very famous story of Abu Ma'ar, St. Macarius. He was walking with his disciple, and they came across a pagan priest. You know the story? So the disciple sees the pagan priest, and he says to him, "Oh devil, where are you off to?" Shatmu. Okay? So the disciple saw the pagan, Ya'bud Asnam, okay, a priest. And then he said, Yashtan rayh fin. Okay? So what did the priest do? The pagan priest, what did he do? He beat him up. He beat up the disciple and almost killed him and left him on the ground. Okay? And then the pagan priest starts running, and he runs into Abu Ma'ar, St. Macarius. And then what does St. Macarius say? Nice things, sweet things. And the pagan priest says, "Why are you talking to me so nicely?" And he said, "Because I can tell you're a very honest, good person, but you're just going in the wrong direction." And after one conversation, this pagan priest became a Christian, then he became a monk, and then he became a disciple of St. Macarius. And he converted other pagan priests. And then St. Macarius said this one wonderful saying. He says, at the very bottom, I don't know if you can read it, and I don't know it in Arabic, but one evil word makes even the good evil, while the good word makes the evil good. Kalma salaha, the good word makes the evil person good. The good word makes the evil person good, and the opposite. The evil word makes a good person evil. So our kids sometimes are evil. Adi. What are you going to say to them? And sometimes you think, "La, I can't, otherwise they'll think this evil thing is right." No. But you can still give them the good word. You can still look at them with love. Look at them with forgiveness. Why? Why can you do that? And if you can get this, I'll end. Who knows the answer? Why can I look at my evil kid who's doing evil things with forgiveness? Look on a scene, Kulunem. Because God did that for me. Not for us, me. When? Last week, when I confessed with tears. So when I feel this forgiveness, of course I'm going to forgive. And it's going to be natural, not fake, it's not pretend. It's, of course, that's how I'm going to react. Okay, I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Aga. Maria. Yes. Oh, wait, let me get you a mic.
Is your kids are wonderful, and I hope my kids are like them one day. And my question, I 100% believe that, prayer, our own lives, we have to work on ourselves, and that will hopefully transmit to the kids, but that's not the goal. At one point, is it where, maybe when our kids are older, feel trouble, about like therapy, for example, or like or even for ourselves, Christian therapy. I think some families have just really deeply rooted problems that they might need someone to reflect to them.
That's a very good question. So the question is, if we do have troubles with our kids, is therapy an option? And the answer is, of course, yes. And unfortunately, sometimes in our community, we have a stigma. It looks bad. we're going to go to a therapist. الناس هيقولوا علينا مجانين. أنا ابني مش مجنون. Stuff like this. And therapy I think it's kind of a strong word, but sometimes, when you're having an interaction, it's like, when you're interacting with your wife, sometimes you get emotional and you kind of get stuck. And the therapist is very good at unstucking you. He can move you past a spot where you just can't see. So there are different issues. I think if there's a spiritual issue, then you find a spiritual guide, you go to your priest, you go to confession father. But then there's also other issues, like a communication issue, right? And sometimes I'm constantly yelling at my kid, and the kid isn't listening. This isn't, it's a little bit of a spiritual issue, but isn't much of a spiritual issue as much as someone who's watching can say, you know what, say it like this, and watch what they do. And then the therapist will come along and say, would you rather do this or that? And the kid goes, I would rather do this. Like, wow, how'd you do that? Miracle, right? And it's because he just switched it. So sometimes as parents, someone watching from the outside really helps us, fine-tune those little details. So I highly recommend finding a good Christian therapist who can help, and a lot of times the issue is sometimes with the parents. And there's so much tension between the parents that it filters down to the kids, but it isn't a parent issue, it's a kid issue, it's a parent issue. So, be open to those kinds of solutions, because a little bit of prevention helps a lot of problems. Yes?
I feel that what you said about being holy and your relationship with God and the kids will be good works most of the time. But there are certain cases where there is no guarantee, right? There is no guarantee that the kids will be holy because you live a righteous life. And there are examples in the Bible like Eli or Samuel, their kids were bad. And there is no indication in the Bible that Eli was living an evil life or Samuel was living. So I don't think it's like 100%.
So I see your point. Like Billy Graham. You all know Billy Graham. He's very famous, amazing preacher. His son was a disaster. Was pain, drugs, women, party, alcohol. Like, this is Billy Graham's son. As Billy Graham was preaching, his son was like this. And then, at the end of Billy Graham's life, his son turned 100%, like at the age of 45. 180 degrees, became a pastor, became a whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's also possible that you don't ever see your kids. Like, you die, and your kids are still bad. That's okay. And you may even, there are people who convert on their deathbed. And so their parents, of course, are long gone. So this isn't about getting results or what's the most foolproof way of getting results. It's really about the focus of and being intentional in my own spiritual life first. And then let the chips fall where they may. And so, this expression, أنا عملت اللي عليا, which I like this expression. Okay? But sometimes we say, أنا عملت اللي عليا, and we say, I took him to Sunday school class. No, that's not what I'm talking about. So if you can say, I've lived a good life before God, and then my son is my son, and my daughter is my daughter. And look, in the end, they have to choose. Like, I've told my kids several times, this is your own spiritual life. It's not mine. Do whatever you want. This is between you and God. You're 20 now. I'm not responsible for you anymore. I'm not responsible for your spiritual life. I'm 55. If I do something, is my mom at fault? No, it's mine. I'm choosing. All of you are choosing, right? It's not your parents. So there's a time, khalas, like it's their spiritual life. And can they choose the wrong path? Yeah, they can choose the wrong path. And that's not on me. And sometimes my fear of letting them choose the wrong path, trying to control them, makes it worse. Sometimes you just take your hands off and you say, do whatever you want. And then they'll pick the right thing. Yes. The question is, what's the solution if you're always feeling anxious around your kids? And of course, I have 10 more questions I want to ask before I answer that question. Why are you feeling anxious? How old are your kids? What's the relationship like with them? So a question like that is very difficult to answer without more questions and understanding the source of the anxiety. But I guess my first reaction is we have to sometimes, yeah, yeah, okay. You want to assume a strained relationship. Okay. And why are you anxious around the kids? No, I mean, if it's like, what's causing, I have more questions. Tell me all the things. Okay, so it isn't anxiety that you're describing, it's confrontation. Okay. All right, well, she just made up the question. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. And how old are these hypothetical kids? And very opinionated. Yeah. 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 I mean, the first thing I'll say is, um, yeah, no, it's good. The first thing I'll say is, I mean, what he said, everyone hear what he said, is it's very natural with your own kids to be more stressed. You know, I'm much for me, for example, I'm much more relaxed with other people's kids. You know, and I can give them advice and no problem, right? But when my kids ask me something, I do feel that. Like I'm more invested, I care more, so I get angry faster, I'm more emotional, and all of that stuff. So, first of all, that's just natural. I don't think I can talk to my kids the same way I can talk to another kid. I'm just going to be more invested and more. So that's okay. I think this is part of that anxiety, is part of a lifelong battle with yourself to be less. And you can do many things. The first one is take a deep breath. Second one, say a prayer. Third, try to start the conversation differently. So I noticed that with my kids, they would start, you know, I give advice, but I don't do any of the things I say. They would start to ask me a question. I knew halfway through the question what they're going to say, and I would start with no. Okay? No, that's not, and then they get really upset, okay, because I didn't listen to them, I didn't blah, blah, blah. Okay? And so in the last few years, as they would start, no matter what they asked me, I would always answer, sure thing, no problem. No matter what they asked me. No matter what they asked me. Okay? Can I go here? Sure. Can I buy this? Sure. And then when I say sure, they calm down. They're no longer bracing for me to come back at them, because that's what I do all the time. And so now they start to relax, like, hey, can I buy this? Sure. And so Now we can actually have a conversation. And then I can start asking more questions. I'm like, oh, but don't you already have one? Like, yeah, I have 4. Then you take a deep breath. And then you say, do you need 5? Is this one different? Maybe, how's it different? And you ask questions, okay? Instead of giving your opinion. So try not to give opinions because kids don't do well with opinions. Ask the right questions and let them think they got to the solution, okay, that you have had from the very beginning. And you just ask them a bunch of questions to get there. And then when they get to it, you go, oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that wouldn't be a good idea, huh? Because you have 5 of them and 4 of them do the same thing. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you don't need it. Good thinking. You did great. Okay? And so you can have this dialogue by starting with, even with little kids. Start with, oh, okay, sure, Habibi. And then they go, okay. And then you say, oh, so I'm wondering, though, blah, blah, blah. And you kind of give and take with them. And then it isn't so antagonistic. Because once you become the source of no, 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 it's not going to work. They just won't want to talk to you. I know my mom's going to say no. I know my dad's going to say no, right? And then once that happens, unfortunately, they don't just go, well, my mom's going to say no, so I'm not going to. They're just going to do it behind your back, right? And this gets worse when they become teenagers because they're not just eating a piece of chocolate behind your back. They're going to a party behind your back. They're drinking behind your back. They're doing drugs behind your back. They're having a relationship behind your back. So the behind your back thing gets worse with time, right? They're not going to just stay at home and be good because you said no. Now you're just the enemy, and I have to figure out a way to get around you. You know, everyone's got these trackers on their kids, and they're just tracking them all the time. And the kid comes home, hey, you're going 75 miles per hour on the 405, I saw you. That kid can't wait to get to college, turn off the tracker, put it in the garbage, and say, you stop tracking me. Leave me alone. I want to live my life, right? And these kids can't wait to get out of the house. They can't wait for you to stop tracking them because they feel suffocated. You know, so, and then we blame the college. We say, oh, العيال باظوا في الكلية, right? The kids went to college, والحرية بوظتهم. The freedom ruined them. No, freedom didn't ruin them. The freedom exposed what they were already feeling, right? Because you created a world where they have to hide from you, pretend from you, you're tracking them, you're looking over their shoulder, and they can't be honest with you. You know, so many times kids will tell me something, I'll say, what do your parents think? And they'll be like, you think I told my parents? Are you crazy? You know, they would lose their minds. You think I can talk to them? This happens all the time. So they just don't talk to you. Instead, they talk to another, 8th grader for really good sound advice. You know, and the other 8th grader gives them advice because they can't talk to you. تفضل. I mean, it's hard to answer that question. Like, it depends on the relationship, right? So I guess what I want you to focus on is less, should they do it or not? Should I let them or not? More about the relationship between you and them. Because, you need to aim for the long term, right? If you can control your kids as teenagers, that doesn't mean they're going to talk to you when they're 30. And many kids don't talk to their parents when they're 30. They're done. So go for the long game. Play the long game. So keep the relationship, the dialogue open. If they make mistakes, they make mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes. We all make mistakes. That's okay, right? As long as the dialogue is there, I can be there, right? And if it gets too bad, I can intervene. But if I don't know, then I can't do anything, right? So I would rather know bad things about my kids. Much rather know. And let them know they can say anything. You know, one of the things they say about St. Macarius, they said he was like God on earth. Because no matter what he heard, he would never judge another person, and he always covered the sins of people, which is Christ-like. Be like that for your kids. No matter what you hear, you're not going to get angry, and you're going to cover their sins, and you're going to be there for them, right? And keep that dialogue open. Are they going to make some mistakes? Sure. Are you going to disagree? Sure. And this will, I mean, maybe you reason with them, and then they said, no, I'm still doing it. Okay. Do it. Right? And maybe it goes well, and maybe it doesn't. And then say, oh, it went well. Good. Like, it's not my ego on the line here. I don't have to win. We have to win. Right? I mean, I'm not talking about something bad. I'm just, something, I want to go to Knott's Berry Farm the day before a final. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not, all right, go. Then he comes back, 2 o'clock in the morning, he's exhausted. I bombed my final. Why do you think you bombed the final? I was really tired. Oh, is it because you went to Knott's Berry Farm? Oh, yeah. And then he says, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have gone to Knott's Berry Farm before the final. Like, yeah, you're right. You're smart. Maybe you shouldn't have gone to Knott's Berry Farm before that. He bombed the final. Okay, he bombed the final. He learned. Fine. You maintain your relationship, and he learned. If you had kept him from it and forced him, he would resent you. See, Dad, I did well anyway. I can do anything I want. I can't wait till I go to college and not have to tell you when I go to Knott's Berry Farm. Yes? No, it isn't. Let him make the mistake and let him learn. Much better. You don't learn lessons by listening. The only lessons we know are the ones we learned the hard way. I'll tell you the litmus test. You know when your kid is a baby, learning how to walk, okay? You're holding their hands. This doesn't change. So as you're teaching them how to walk, if you keep holding their hands, they'll never learn how to walk. So after a while, you kind of let go of their hands, right? And if every time they get to a step or something, you pick them up, or there's a little, difference between the carpet and the hardwood, and there's a little, piece there, and you pick them up because they may trip on it, they'll never learn how to walk, okay? So what should you do? Maybe the first time you help him over it, but then after a while, you're like, let's see what he does. And he stumbles on, and he falls. Because he learned there's a little piece of wood there, and if I don't step over it, I'm going to fall. Okay? So as a parent, what are you trying to achieve? I want him to walk as fast as possible, right? I want him to learn as fast as possible. What's the only thing I don't want? Is it okay if he falls? Absolutely. Falls on his butt, no problem, right? The only thing I don't want is glass on the head, right? Hit head on glass. That's the only thing that I, as a parent, will jump in on. Everything else, no problem. He falls on his elbow, no problem. He falls on his face, okay? Not a big deal. They heal. So this doesn't change as they get into their high school, college years, okay? It just, the context changes. All I'm trying to prevent is head to glass. Everything else is okay. I bombed the final, right? Now, I got into a car with someone who's drunk. That one ends your life. Now I get involved, okay? You get on the back of someone on a motorcycle, now I'm going to get involved, okay? But anything other than head to glass, so you have a high schooler or a college or whatever, hell, let him fall on his butt. It's okay. Kids fall on their butt, they get right back up. Okay? We're like, but if I could teach him how to walk without falling, it's better. No, it's not. Best to teach him how to walk and fall. I mean, you, you can try. You're going to burn a lot of capital doing that. Okay? I'm going to work really, really hard to prevent my kid from doing some little thing. But now, he's frustrated with me. Dad doesn't let me do things. Dad yelled at me. I resent dad, blah, blah. There's a cost to that, right? So, like you have these bullets. Save your bullets, okay? And if when they're asking for the little things, you're saying, sure, no problem. Then you ask some questions. And sometimes they'll say, okay, and sometimes they won't, okay? But then I only save my bullets for the big ones, right? Such that when I say something, when I actually have a strong opinion, your kids are like, oh, okay, Dad, oh, okay, no, I won't then, right? Because Dad doesn't say no very often, right? Save the bullets for the big ones. Let him fall on his butt all the time. I missed a book report. You missed the book report. Now what happened? Well, now I got to say, oh, that sucks. I guess you can't go to your friend's house for birthday. Oh, why? I guess you missed the book report. No emotion here. This is a consequence of life. Right? This is what we say in Arabic, right? Right? Let life teach them. Try to be the bad guy as little as possible. Let the world be the bad guy, right? Instead of you saying, stop lying, don't lie, blah, blah, I say, if you lie, I think your friends won't trust you anymore. Friends won't like you anymore. Keep lying. I don't know. I don't care. But, right? And then they see me never lie. They'll figure it out. They'll lie a couple times. Friends will catch them. It happens. Okay? I mean, it's easy for me to say it's your kid, but Yes.
I have one from.
So am I. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody. Their eyes aren't even, like, their brains aren't even working. I don't. Without us. Yes. Parents. There's let me tell this one story. It's I tell this story a lot. And when my son was like 14 or 15 years old, it was during Lent, and 15-year-old was in the middle of Lent, and it was Saturday morning, and he gets really upset, and he goes, "This sucks. I hate Lent. There's nothing to eat. I hate it. It's stupid." And 15-year-old, we've all did it, right? And so I when he said all that, he got very upset about fasting. So I just said, "No problem, Habibi." I opened the fridge, and I took out 4 eggs, and I scrambled them, and I said, "Here you go. Eat up." And he's looking at me, and I said, "God doesn't need you to fast. God doesn't need you to fast. He's God. Now, if you want to fast and you want to offer a fast from your heart, offer. But you don't have to." And I just left. And a few days later, we were somewhere, and there was Fitari food and Siami food. And I noticed he was eating the Siami food. And I said, "Why aren't you eating the steak? I would be eating the steak if I were you." And he goes, "Oh, no, I'm fasting now." "Oh, okay, no problem." And I just walked away. Now, if I had dug in and a Siam, and you see my hand is going like this, and the veins in my neck started bulging out, and he would have hated fasting. He would have hated the church. He would have hated God. And I said, "Talk to Abuna. Abuna will make you fast." And then he would have hated Abuna. You have to handle things wisely, right? You dig in, you push the hard position, you shove it down their throats, again, like we were shoved down our throats, because fasting is not Ramadan. Lent is not Ramadan. Lent is a self-sacrifice that I offer, right? To deny myself. If you force me to do it, it's not effective. So we have to be a little careful. So, to your example, right? There's going to be a Siyam next year. He can fast next year, right? Long game. I could win the battle. I could cut it out. You're eating this. I could put it in your face, IV, whatever I have to do to show, I'm going to lose. And I haven't actually taught him the spiritual life. I actually haven't taught him real spiritual life. I taught him, the law. Yes, go ahead.
There's 2 questions, and I think they kind of go hand in hand, so I'll give them together. So how do I parent my children in a healthy way, and how do I show up as a better parent when I'm still healing from my own childhood trauma from my parents, or if I'm struggling in my marriage? I think they kind of tie in together. So
Yeah.
when there's stuff happening.
So everyone heard the question? How do I show up for my kids better if I'm struggling in my own marriage and I'm struggling from my own trauma as a parent? The thing they teach us on the airplane is very, very important, right? Please put your own oxygen mask first before putting it on a child. So if you have your own trauma and your own issues, and like you said so well, your own anxiety from your own upbringing, then maybe go to a therapist, work through some of that. You're not going to fix it all, but at least you'll recognize it. You'll recognize, oh, this is what I'm doing right now. And believe me, I'm making it sound easier, but it's very difficult to do. And I personally went through a great deal of reversing my own upbringing in order to raise one of my sons, right? Because I had to reverse everything I saw in my whole life. Okay, and it's very hard to do. But at least I have to recognize, the first thing is recognizing, okay, that is not the right approach. Screaming, the yelling is not the right approach. The anxiety is not the right approach. I'm going to work on it the rest of my life, but recognizing it is very important. So I think you have to make sure you're working on you first. Again, this is same like the talk about the Christian life, right? My relationship with God is first, and then what comes off of me, my kids will absorb. But my relationship with God is the primary relationship. I don't know if that helps. Oh. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're going to have to talk about that. It's extremely challenging when the marriage, of course, is, you're struggling there, and then the kids are watching the parents fight. The kids are watching the parents do, not Christian things to one another, using the kids against each other, and then for you to try and parent at that point. And sometimes you don't even feel confident in your own self, like what kind of example am I or who am I even to raise a kid? And there I think the key is you can only do what you can do with what you have. And if this is the situation you find yourself in, then this is really where you ask God to make up for the difference in your own weaknesses. And the best we can do is offer to Christ our weakness and say, now you bless the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, right? And sometimes all we can offer is something, is all we have. And that's okay. So again, because my raising my kids isn't an absolute standard. It isn't, do I want good kids or bad kids? Or, it's more about, am I doing the best I can with what I have? And am I offering God everything I have? So sometimes you have to give yourself a break. A lot of us aren't in perfect relationships. A lot of us none of us had perfect parents. None of us are in perfect relationships. All of us are struggling in different ways, so you just offer what you have with, what you can do. I think that's the best advice I can give, and give yourself a break. So many, moms will say, my son doesn't have a chance because his dad is a narcissist, arrogant, whatever, and so my son's going to be like this, and he has no, and it's like, don't do that. Don't go into that world of fear and what if he turns out, and what if this happens, and allow yourself to bring fear into your life. Stay at the level of God. You have to take care of what I can't take care of, right? And I guess that's the best I have.
I want to just see where everyone's at. Do we want to keep going with the Q&A a little bit longer, or do we want to move on to our next? I know there's just a few more questions left that we didn't get to, but this is your day, and we want it to be something that's helpful for you. I know it doesn't always feel good to vote or share where you're at, but do we want to keep going with the Q&A, or do we want to transition to the next? Because we
won't
can
take it
save it
personally.
after. I'm hearing yes for the Q&A. Yeah? Okay. Well, there is, but it won't be with Marchie. It won't be with Archie Mark. So he'll only be here with us for the first half. So that's why if I knock him out right now and just give you someone else, this is your one and only chance to have this kind. But we will have more time later for more interaction, and we'll be a smaller group between the Arabic and the English. So hopefully it's even more intimate, and we'll have more conversations. But this is your only chance with Archie. Do we want to keep going? Okay. I see. I like the people who nod. That's good feedback. Okay. So I'll ask some more questions here, and then please raise your hand if you just want to ask directly. So I'm going to translate this one a little bit, but this person's asking that, or sharing that their kid doesn't enjoy being with them. Basically, they hate being with them, and they destroy a good mood. So how could they? It's not laugh. It's a serious question. Okay. So how can that person fix the relationship, fix ourselves and the relationship with the kids? So maybe it's maybe it feels harsh, or everything feels maybe rigid. I don't want to translate for this person, but maybe feeling kind of hard.
So I think part of it is in what was said in the question. Did anyone pick up the part of they destroy the mood? So whose fault is it? Kid's fault, right? No. If the kids don't want to be with you, be more pleasant. Because the kids want to be with pleasant. Find out what your kids like and be that. On Instagram, there's a reel that I have where I say, if your kid likes cat videos, look at cat videos. They want to send you TikToks, look at their TikToks. If a kid wants to share with you something, share with them. Sometimes our kid sends us a TikTok and And what do? We give them a long lecture on TikTok is a waste of time. Why aren't you studying? This is stupid. Il habal da. What's wrong with you? You know, this is making you stupid. And then the kids looking at you like, tab khalas, I won't share with you anymore. I'll stop talking to you. This is what I like. I like dumb things. Kids like dumb things. So you should like dumb things too. So I'll tell you where this is all coming from. When I was 19 years old, I had a sermon by Pope Shenouda called Al-Usra al-Muqaddasa, the Holy Family. And I listened to that sermon 100 times. It was on cassette until I wore it out. And there's one question someone asked in the audience. And he said, Sayyidina, when I got married, my wife was an angel, Malek. And after we got married, اكتشفت إن هي مش ملاك. Okay, I found out that she was not an angel. What should I do? And Pope Shenouda's response was immediate and perfect. He said, Inta sabab. It's your fault. Because if you received her, if she was an angel, you have to preserve her as an angel. And you failed to preserve her as an angel. And I just loved that speed of which he said that. And so when you say, my kid's a devil, the inta sabab, it's your fault, right? Your kid is an angel. If you see them as an angel, they will be an angel. If you see good in them, they will be good. Like St. Macarius said, the good word makes the evil person good. Say the good word. See the good in your kids. And you know what's going to happen when you do that? When you see the good in your kids? The kids will notice. Do you know how they'll notice? How do you think they'll notice? Your face. You look at them. They'll look at you like, my dad likes me. They'll see it in your eyes. When you see the good in your kids will feel it. So see the good in your kids. And who doesn't want to be with someone who thinks they're great? Is there anyone on earth who doesn't want to be with the people who think you're wonderful? Is that normal? You want to be with the people who think you're terrible? So if you think your kids are great, your kids will want to be with you. Because you think I'm great. You like me. And I like people who like me. It's that simple.
Okay, maybe we'll do one more question on the app, and then if anyone else has any other questions, and then we'll transition if there's no more questions. It says, my kid is lying to me many times. So what is a reasonable reaction? Is it okay if the parent says, I'm not going to trust you anymore? Oh, and we got more questions.
Okay. So the question is, my kid is lying to me. What's my reaction? So,
And is it okay that I said I'm not going to trust you?
yeah, is it okay for me to say I'm not going to trust you? So, again, let's start. The story starts with, my kid is lying to me. Is that the beginning of the story? No. Because there was a time when your kid didn't lie to you. Right? Remember how, honest they used to be and tell you all the things and you're like, just stop talking? So there was a time they didn't lie to you. They told you something. And what'd you do? Not react well. So now what do? Lie to you. Because if I tell them the truth, my dad goes crazy and my mom goes crazy. So I'm not going to tell them the truth. Tell them whatever they need to hear. Did you go to church? Yeah, I went. Well, what are you going to say if I say I didn't go to church? Right? It's going to be a half an hour yelling. Okay? I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not stupid. I'm going to take half an hour of your yelling? No, I'm going to say I went. I saved myself half an hour of you yelling at me. Okay? So the story doesn't start at my kid lies. Kids don't lie. Right? They start out as angels, and we teach them to lie. Right? Like one little thing that I switched in when I would hear something fall in the house. I used to start with, "What'd you do?" Right? What is that? That is an attack. And if you're a smart kid, the first thing you do is lie. What do you say? Nothing. Of course you did something. You're right there. It fell. Okay? But dad's coming and he say, "What'd you do?" Nothing. I'm teaching him to lie. Right? So now, when I hear something break, first thing out of my mouth, "Are you okay?" That's the first thing I say. And it made me so happy as my kids got older that when they would hear something fall, I would hear them say, "Are you okay?" Because that's all that matters. I can get a new one of these. They're on Amazon. 2 clicks and I'll have a new one. No problem. This I don't care about. Are you okay? Are we okay? That's more important. Right? So these are the small adjustments that we don't think about, but they teach our kids to lie when we come. "What'd you do?" "عملت إيه?" "تاني." Blah, blah, blah. Okay. No. My brother did it. The cat did it. I was doing somehow. Okay. So if your kid's lying, and sometimes, so if your kid's lying to you like that, that could be a you problem. And so it's okay to say, "Please don't lie to me. Please tell me the truth." Okay? Now here's the deal. No matter what they say, you do not get angry. Because if you get angry, you're going to go right back to lying. Okay? That doesn't mean, if I'm not angry, that doesn't mean I'm okay with it. Yeah, I got drunk and I got arrested. Are you okay? Good. So what happened? See my language? I'm drawing out of them. No condemnation, no judgment. Does he think I think getting drunk and getting arrested is good? He does not think that. He doesn't think I think it's okay. But I'm not going to attack him. I'm still going to ask. And he knows I'm there and I'm going to support him. Right? And I'm going to draw out very easygoing questions to get them to speak. Because I don't want him to lie to me. I don't want him to say, "Yeah, well, it's my friend, and then, he took me here, but I didn't want to go." I don't need the lies. I want a relationship. Lying is not a relationship. Okay? Now, it is very important if your kid says to you, and I've said this to my kids, "If you lie to me, I won't trust you." Not I won't trust you. It will take me a long time to trust you again. And I used to even give them numbers. I say, every time you lie to me, you have to tell me the truth 20 times before I trust you again. So 3 lies, that's 60 times you have to tell me the truth. And then we have to start over the next time you lie. And what I would do sometimes is when that person, one of my kids, would then tell me the truth, sometimes I'd push a little bit. I go, "I don't believe you." And I know it's the truth. Like, "What do you mean it's the truth?" I go, "I don't know. You lied to me before. I don't know." And make them work for it. Now they're like, no, I don't know. I want to believe you. I love you. I want to believe you. But now the relationship is, again, it's reverse psychology, right? They're kids. And so they want us to love them. They want that. So the person earlier who said, "My kid doesn't want to be with me." Of course they do. There's no one on earth they want to be with more. They want you to love them more than anyone else on earth. But you're not giving it to them. You're giving them, "Is that all you did? Why'd you get a B? Your friends are stupid. ما تبطل صياعة. Go stop going to parties." Blah, blah. Okay. Is that good? Yes.
Archie, can I also add to that? Because it's a question that relates to yours. It's like, what's the appropriate age to learn the hard way?
I mean, it's a very difficult question to answer because every kid's different and every age is different. And so what I was a red line here is no longer a red line. So it moves because the child has more experience. So I can give him more freedom. So it's a constant thing. And some kids are stupid. Like some kids are not very smart. So you have to like manage them a little bit more. Some kids just get it and they'll know naturally. And some kids you have to push and, you know, and you may have several kids and each one is different. So you have to handle each one a little differently. I don't know. I don't like to give like red lines like that. I know I'm sitting here thinking for a long time. I mean, the best way to, the best thing that I think is for it to work, for it to work backwards. It isn't, you know, what behavior is acceptable and not acceptable, but rather I focus on my relationship with them, okay? And then they naturally absorb what I think is a red line and not a red line, you know? Because this is the model Jesus used, right? Jesus discipled, right? Kids are your disciples, okay? So we're discipling. And what Jesus did is he lived with them, ate with them, talked with them, and they just sort of picked up him. And every once in a while they would say things like, who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, and who's whatever, and they would fight among each other, right? So they're still messing up, but it was about absorbing his characteristics, right? So just by you being around and you focusing on what's important in your own spiritual life, I think as they say something, you're going to have a face. You can't hide it, you know, and you're going to respond. You go, oh, okay, that kind of sucks. Oh, and then it's subtle and they know versus this is the red line. You can't do this. Now it's like I'm a military, you know, thing, right? And these are my orders, and, you know, you have to be in your barracks by 6 p.m. You know what I mean? Like, you also want the house to be a nice place, right? You want the kids to love being home, to love being around you, right? So I would, you know, I mean, when our kids were little, yeah, there was rules and stuff, but as they get older, you know, less rules, more discipleship. More conversation without rules. I know that was not helpful at all. I just don't want to get excommunicated. You know, in Arabic, you say al-haram, what's the word? Desired. So, I mean, I can tell you with our with our kids, I mean, not like 15, but like 16, 17, 18, 19, if I had a cocktail and they wanted to try, I'd give them a sip. This tastes terrible. Okay. You know, and then it isn't the thing that they want anymore. Again, the idea of moderation and modeling appropriate behavior. I mean, like, let's just take alcohol, right? You know, we have a big drinking problem with the kids, okay? You know, Buna can tell you. They're all getting plastered. Why? You know, main reason, absolutely forbidden, haram, blah, 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 blah. So they can't wait to try it. Second, their parents are getting plastered, right? And the parents aren't modeling, you know, or the parents will say, I don't touch alcohol. I don't, not a sip. Okay, you're not showing me moderation. You're not showing me, I have one cocktail with dinner or one glass of wine, you know. So show me moderation. And then the third reason, you know, is, look, when your kid goes to college, he's going to try alcohol. Okay, sorry. The only reason he's going to stick to alcohol is if he's covering up another problem. Okay? Most likely, the other problem he's covering up is you. You know, when kids keep drinking, you know, past college, there's an issue there. Like, there's a pain that they're drugging. And usually it's, dad's a mashadif, hey, my mom's whatever, I was abused. You know, like, I come from a terrible household. I hate being there. I have to get, I talk to kids who say, I have to get drunk before I go home. I have to drink around my parents because I can't handle them judging me and attacking me and then them fighting and then, well, I can't be home without having a drink. Okay? So now why are they alcoholics? Because of you. You know what I'm saying? So again, what's the fastest way to solve, like, the best way to solve alcoholism is, you know, don't be a problem for them. Be a source of moderation for them. Be an example to them, right? And all those, very case by case. And it depends on your relationship with them, you know? I mean, there are some parents who have strained the relationship so much that they can't tell their kids anything. Tell your kid, brush your teeth. He's going to lose his mind. Who are you to tell me to brush my blah, blah? I mean, I'm just telling you to brush your teeth, right? But the relationship is so bad that I can't even talk to them. So now what do? I have to back off, right? I have to back off, and I have to rebuild the relationship, you know, and not push it. And there's other kids, I could tell them, go cut your arm off, and I say, okay, Dad, if you say so, right? Because I've built the relationship. And this is what I said earlier, spend time with your kids. You know, when they're young, even when they're teenagers, spend time with them. You make that investment when they're young. Then when you're older, you can tell them anything you want, and they're going to listen to you because you gave them the time, gave them that self-esteem, you gave them that self-worth. You're the source. You're who God is, right? And then you can say what you want, right? It's kind of like your wife. If you're constantly telling her what she's doing wrong, she's not listening to you. She's done. Even if you're right, she doesn't want to hear you because you've complained about 35 things, okay? But if you've made the investment in your wife and said positive things, you know, all the time, positive. Then you say, yeah, you know what, maybe we could add a little salt to this one. She, oh, sure, Habibi, put more salt. Otherwise, command, you want more salt, right? Because, you know, this is number 36 that you're complaining. You know, so kids are the same way. If you've made the investment in the good times, then when you go to correct, you have some capital.
So, yeah, we'll do that one and then
So how do you teach a parent, or how do you teach yourself to like parent yourself to let go of that control? And how can you rebuild that relationship? Like what are some practical, like step one, step two for parents to like leave today and reconcile with their children if they are experiencing some of these challenges?
That's hard. I don't know because I think it depends on the situation, what the control looks like, and again what the relationship is like. I think the first thing I would do is I would ask my kids. I don't know how old the kids are even. If they're at the age where you can talk to them, say, hey, you know, tell me something good about the way I parented you and tell me something bad about the way I parented you. What did you like? You know, I did this with my daughter once. We went on a long bike ride, and I had a list of questions. And I said, tell me the good things that you liked as us as parents, and tell me about the things you don't like as us as parents. You know, and of course, you can't get defensive when they talk about the things they don't like. And so maybe start the conversation with them. Like, listen, you know, instead of, again, trying to fix it and control it and say, okay, I know it's wrong. Here's what I'm going to do to fix this. You know, it's like, well, that's the problem. You know, you never even asked me. So maybe start there. Say, what can I do better? And you'd be amazed how smart the kids are. You know, that's always a good question. And unfortunately, you know, like you said, culturally as Egyptians, we don't ask that question. I am the parent. You never question me. You know, that's not okay. That's, again, that's ego. Asking your kid, what can I do better? Wonderful question. You know, and listen. And usually they have very good advice.
So sorry for missing this question earlier, but person, how can I help my kids become confident and talkative even though their parents aren't very outgoing with others?
Everyone hear the question? So how can I make my kids outgoing when I'm not outgoing? You have to be a little careful. Like, you know, we all want what's best for our kids. But, you know, like in America, it's the common joke is the star of the football team, quarterback on the football team, his dad never made, you know, the football team. And so he wanted to make sure his son makes the football team and becomes the star that he never became. Okay? So sometimes we try to live through our kids and we say, you know, so they can have all the things I didn't have. They can be popular because I wasn't popular. And they can go to, you know, master's degree and I never went to my master's degree. And then I want my kids to do all the things I didn't do. Okay? Now that sounds really nice, but did you notice what word I used a lot? I. Because all that was about who? Me. Right? And all the things I want to accomplish, I wanted to achieve, I want my kid to be the I. And I'm not asking the kid, well, what's this kid actually like? Okay? So you want to be a little careful and say, well, I just want you to be outgoing, and I just want you to have all the friends, and I just want you to do really well, and I just want you to blah, blah, blah. Because sometimes that's more about me than about the kid. And the kid knows it. So don't, you know, it's if you're not very outgoing, it's okay. Maybe your kid's not going to be outgoing either. You're fine. You made it. Not that bad. Some people are outgoing, and some people aren't outgoing. You know, so sometimes we try to make our kids, you know, it's like Amazon. You know, you select all the different filters, and you try to get the best thing. You know, and I want it over this size and this weight and this cost and this color, and then it filters down, and you get we can't do that with kids. We can't Amazon our kids and make them, you know, I want them very religious and very athletic and very school and very popular and very, you know, friendly and love the poor and you know, relax. The focus, again, is I'm going to focus on my life with God. And then my kid's his own kid. He's got his own spiritual life. Let them live their spiritual life. God may take them a different way. Maybe they're meant to be a monk. Maybe they're supposed to be in solitude. I don't know. Maybe they're going to be very contemplative, quiet people. Too much talking anyway. Maybe someone should be quiet for once. Maybe your kid will be the one quiet kid that we all hope. The next St. Anthony, it was his feast the other day. That was not a good. Yeah, I think he had a question.
Okay, yeah. you like to throw? Okay.
Oh, I agree with you. First of all, I love you very much. You're perfect. Um, you have a very good heart, and I agree with you. I agree with you completely. Um, you know, personally, I don't watch TV. It's a waste of time. I don't have time to watch TV. And unfortunately, when my kids are watching TV, I walk in, I sit for a few minutes, I try to relate to them. You know, they're watching something stupid, and I go, this is a waste of time. And I get up and I walk out, right? I'm like, I have too many things to do to be sitting here doing this. Okay, so I'm with you 1,000% on this. I guess what I'm saying is I don't want you to encourage them to waste their time on social media, for sure. But there's two traps that can happen from your good heart. First trap is, I'm going to protect them from social media. Good luck. Okay? That's not going to happen, right? And you can do a lot, but it is a waste of time. It is horrible. And the most effective way for anyone to come to the realization of how wasteful and terrible social media is to waste their time in social media and realize this is terrible. And I can't tell you how many youth will voluntarily, willingly, on their own say, I am cutting out, I am deleting my Instagram, I am done with this. And the only way they got there was spending a lot of time wasting their time. And you could have given them 80 talks. They would have looked at you like, bro, you've never seen these cat videos, right? Or worse, okay? Because this is dopamine, okay? So this is designed, right? So you touch it, and you're on, you're hooked. So the only way you come out of that, you know, is you kind of have to go through it. And then you come out of it an evangelist against social media. But if dad makes me stop social media, there's nothing more I want than social media, right? And you see these kids, they go to college and they lose their minds, right? All they're on is on their phone, like finally. And they're just like going crazy. This is all they want, right? And the kid who kind of had it and kind of didn't and kind of had it limited and kind of had, they're like, okay, bro, like move on. Let's go go out and do something. This is all they want because they don't get this, right? So, you know, that's the first mistake that can happen from, you know, that correct approach. And then the second one is, it can be misinterpreted by your kid as a lack of connection, right? So a kid wants to share with you something. So like, I think if your kid shares with you anything, you take it. You laugh, even if it's stupid, right? No, if it's stupid, you can tell them it's stupid. I've told, like sometimes I'm like, this is not funny. I don't even understand what oh my God, it's so funny. Look what he did, you know, and it's just dumb. And I tell them it's dumb. But then I share something not dumb with them. I say, this is smart comedy. Look, this is good stuff right here. And I share Monty Python or something good. But anyway, so there can be an interaction. So there can even be teaching in that, right? Kids share something that's clearly a waste of time. And that's just wasting time. And let me show you something really good. And elevate them, right? But to shut it down, they're going to say, okay, well, I'm not going to share. I'm still on social media, but I'm not going to share with my dad because he's not fun. I don't want to be with him. I'll share it with my friends. They ha-ha it. They say, you're great. They look at my friend who shared the thing, and I get validation from them. So I'm going to go to the 8th grader, and I'm not going to go to my dad. That's what happens. Yeah. And this worked with our parents, like with us, because the culture was just different, right? It was a culture of obedience. It was a culture of you did what your parents did. There was a respect of parents and adults, elderly, that isn't in America. And so using the same approach gets you the wrong result, because the whole culture is different in even not just Egypt to America, America to America. If you look at the movies of the 1950s and the 1960s, yes, dad, yes, mom, yes, ma'am, right? Very respectful. I mean, Americans just 50 years ago, completely different than Americans now, right? So even, like my wife's parents, the Americans who kind of grew up here, like they're looking at the kids now, they're like, what is this? So it isn't even Egypt, America. It's America, America. The whole world's changed. And the question is, how do you respond? And if you respond and you dig in, say, no, this is how I did it. This is how I grew up. This is what we're going to do. Even if you were born in America. I was born in America, and I can't apply the same standards I was used to. It's just different now. The kids are just different. And so I can say, in 1975, this is what we did. Okay, old man. So we have to adapt without compromising core values. But it looks different now. Yeah.
Okay, well, this will be our last question. Yeah.
Actually, all the disagreements go to Abuna ala طول.
About lie on me, I can tell lied before. I don't trust like 20 times. I don't know, but I don't like I don't know from what I learned. I don't know.
No, I see what you're saying. I'll give you more context. The situation I was talking about, kids go through phases. هفة كده تجيلهم, right? So this particular child didn't lie. And I don't say lie and don't lie, and you just model not lying. And if my kid ever said to me, oh, you lied, blah, blah, because you said, blah, my response is always, I never lie. That's always my response. But I don't use that word very often. I just tell the truth. But this was kind of a heffa kida in middle school, where this kid was like, you know what, I'm going to start lying a lot. Okay? And I didn't like it. And it was causing problems. And it was kind of a lot. So that's why I kind of took a very strong action in that situation. It's not like they grew up in this, and I was like, if you lie, because then you're just highlighting the negative. I don't want to sit there and tell them all the things you can't do. That's no fun. You just live the right way, and the kids see the right thing. And then if you see something not the right way, you can kind of ignore it if it's not head on glass, maybe. But sometimes, it needs correction. Okay? And if I see it zid shwaya, I corrected it. That's why I jumped in. But you're right. You don't want to talk all the negative stuff all the time. If you have a big disagreement, Abuna Mogud, and you can yell at him all you want.
All right, everyone. I know we've been sitting for quite some time. I know it's hard sometimes to have focused attention. So right now, what we're going to do is transition into lunch. And so if you have children, in childcare, we'll ask you to go and pick them up, have lunch together, and we're just switching our schedule just a little bit because I know there was a lot of questions, and I know sometimes it's very helpful to have those answered. And so we'll combine the talk and the workshop together for the second part. So once you pick up the kiddos, have lunch together, 10 minutes before, 5-10 minutes before we start our second session, which is at 2:30. Now it's 1:30. Drop them back off in the childcare. If you are attending the English portion, come here. And you'll be with Dr. John Daniel. If you are attending the Arabic, you will be in the other small church in the other building. So if your home church is St. John's, you're familiar, but if it's not, we'll help guide you. It's there's the entrance for where you pull into the parking lot. It's the building right in front when you exit, okay? That's where the small church is, and that's where you'll be for the second part. And then we'll come back together after an hour, and then we'll conclude the day. And so if you didn't get a chance to register or get any of your raffle tickets or any of those things, please see me downstairs in the hall where we're eating the food, and I can get you the raffle and all of that stuff. Any questions before we transition? Okay, thank you all. We'll see you downstairs.